You have 2 years to live. It was a sentence I had never imagined hearing, let alone one that would define the rest of my life. But in that moment, as the morning light filtered through the window, the kind of window found in every hospital room, its glass slightly smudged, its frame unremarkable, yet, somehow, a silent witness to countless moments of hope and despair, I was oblivious. The light cast a pale, golden hue across the back wall of the conference room, soft and diffuse, as though hesitant to intrude. Inside, the air felt heavy, charged with an unspoken tension that made each breath feel deliberate, measured. I sat there, waiting, my stomach coiled with a dread I couldn't quite name. Beyond the glass, the ridgeline of Palo Alto rose in the distance, its silhouette sharp and unwavering against the sky, a quiet reminder of the world outside, steady, enduring, and indifferent to the fragile human stories unfolding beneath it. Palo Alto, nestled in the heart of California's Silicon Valley, lies just south of San Francisco and north of San Jose. It is a place where rolling hills meets the flat expanse of the Santa Clara Valley, framed by the Santa Cruz Mountains to the west and the San Francisco Bay to the east. Known globally as the birthplace of technological innovation and home to Stanford University, Palo Alto is a city of contrasts, a blend of serene natural beauty and the relentless pace of progress. Its ridgelines, often cloaked in golden light or shrouded in coastal fog, stand as silent sentinels over a landscape that has witnessed both the quiet struggles of individuals and the seismic shifts of history. The town was known for its towering redwoods, ancient sentinels that stood as monuments to time, their height and resilience a quiet testament to endurance. They seemed to watch over the valley like silent guardians, their roots deep, their branches towering toward eternity. Beyond the glass, the ridgeline of the Palo Alto rose in the distance, its silhouette sharp and unwavering against the sky, a quiet reminder of the world outside, steady, enduring, and indifferent to the fragile human stories unfolding beneath it. The light, the window, the view, they were all familiar, almost comforting in their simplicity, yet heavy with the unspoken weight of waiting. 2 doctors entered the room, Dr. Robinson, a woman in her mid-50s, and Dr. Carter, a man in his early 30s. Their arrival cut through the stillness, sharp and abrupt, like a sudden shift in the weather. The calm I had found in the view beyond the window, the ridgeline steady against the sky, the redwoods standing tall and timeless, seemed to retreat, replaced by a tension that filled the air. The beauty of the moment, the quiet solace I had clung to, now felt distant, as though the room itself had exhaled and left no space for anything but the weight of their presence. Dr. Robinson's brown skin glowed against the stark white of her lab coat, her stethoscope draped loosely around her neck like a scarf worn carelessly. When we'd first met, her face had been warm, almost jovial. It was the day before when I was admitted to the sleep center for an overnight sleep study. The room had been sterile but not unwelcoming, with its soft light and the faint hum of medical equipment. A technician, polite and efficient, had guided me through the process, explaining each step with a practiced ease that did little to calm the quiet unease settling in my chest. The procedure began with the attachment of numerous electrodes to my scalp, each one placed and secured with a cool sticky gel. Wires trailed from my head like a tangled halo, connecting me to a machine that would monitor my brainwaves, eye movements, and muscle activity. More electrodes were fastened to my chest to track my heartbeat, and sensors were strapped to my legs to detect any restless movements. The technician assured me it was all routine, a standard protocol to gather data while I slept. But as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, the weight of the wires and the clinical precision of the room pressed down on me. The fear, subdued but persistent, crept in. What if something went wrong? What if I didn't wake up? The thought lingered, unspoken but palpable, as the technician dimmed the lights and left me alone with the rhythmic beeping of the machine. The efficiency of the process was undeniable. Every step was methodical, every detail accounted for. The doctors and technicians moved with a certainty that suggested this was just another night, another patient, another set of data to analyze. Yet for me, it felt anything but routine. The machines hummed, the electrodes recorded, and I drifted into an uneasy sleep, caught between the clinical detachment of the procedure and the deeply personal fear of what it might reveal. But now her expression was solemn, the kindness replaced by a quiet intensity. Dr. Carter followed her, his presence more subdued, like an apprentice still learning the rhythm of the craft. He lingered at the edges, his movements tentative, his silence adding to the weight of the moment. The door closed softly behind them, but the sound seemed to echo, amplifying the stillness. Dr. Robinson's gaze locked onto mine, her eyes searching for something I wasn't sure I was ready to reveal. I shifted in my seat, hyper-aware of the room's details, the way the light caught the dust particles in the air, the faint hum of the HVAC system, the distant ticking of a clock. It all felt too sharp, too deliberate, as if the world had narrowed to this single moment. Dr. Carter remained silent, his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on me with a quiet expectation. He didn't look judgmental, but there was something in his gaze, a kind of urgency, as if we were waiting for me to catch up on a truth I'd been avoiding. Dr. Robinson continued, her voice calm but insistent, each word measured, deliberate, silent reminder of resilience. While inside, the room felt fragile, poised on the edge of something I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Dr. Robinson didn't waste time. "Derrick," she said, her voice low but unyielding. "You need to take this seriously." The words landed like a weight on my chest. There was no joking this time, no brushing off the concern with a smile. I had already known this wasn't going to be a light conversation, but hearing it out loud made it real. She continued, her voice steady but filled with a quiet urgency. "The results from your sleep study are in. You're waking up at an average of 20 times an hour during your sleep. That's 160 times a night. You're twitching, snoring, gasping for air." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Gasping for air. It wasn't just a phrase. It was a visceral, primal struggle. I knew the feeling all too well, though I hadn't realized it was happening in my sleep. That desperate, clawing sensation of your lungs fighting for oxygen, your body jerking awake in a panic, only to drift back into unconsciousness moments later. It was a cycle of suffocation and relief, repeated endlessly through the night, leaving me exhausted but unaware why. The numbers hung in the air, stark and unrelenting. 20 times an hour, 160 times a night. I tried to wrap my mind around it, but the math felt too vast, too abstract. How could I not have known? How could my body betray me so silently, so completely? As she spoke, a strange clarity began to settle over me. This wasn't just my problem. It was something far bigger. I remembered reading somewhere, in some forgotten article or passing conversation, that millions of people lived with this same condition. Sleep apnea, they called it. A disorder where breathing stops and starts, where the body fights for air in the dark, unseen and unheard. I hadn't paid much attention at the time. It was just another fact, another statistic. But now, sitting there, the wires of the sleep study still fresh in my memory, it felt different. This was what so many people suffered through, night after night, year after year, often without realizing it. The realization didn't make it easier, but it did make it feel less lonely. This wasn't just my struggle, it was a shared one, a quiet epidemic hidden in bedrooms around the world. And yet, for all its commonness, it felt deeply personal, as though the numbers were a mirror reflecting back a truth I hadn't been ready to see. The mental toll was just as heavy as the physical. Each gasp was a silent cry for help, a moment of fear your body couldn't articulate, but your mind couldn't forget. It was the kind of exhaustion that steeped into your bones, leaving you frayed and hollow, as though you were drowning even when you were awake. I couldn't breathe. Not just in that moment, but in every moment that replayed in my mind. Every night I thought I'd slept through. Every morning I woke up feeling more tired than before. The room felt smaller now, the air thinner, as though the truth had sucked all of the oxygen out of it. The weight of her words seemed to settle in my chest, suffocating me. How could I not have known? How did I not realize the depth of the problem? I attempted to make light of it. Well, I'm just a type A person. I don't really need that much sleep, I joked, though the words came out more nervously than I had intended. At the time, I was running an internet startup, and I wore my sleeplessness like a badge of honor. But the truth was, I was there because I had fallen asleep at the steering wheel of my car. I had been driving well beyond the speed limit, on a dark, unlit section of the 101 highway when it had happened. It occurred during a drive from Los Angeles to Silicon Valley, a journey I had taken to distance myself from the confines of Hollywood's never-ending formulaic storylines. Hollywood had always been a land of glittering illusions, its stories as predictable as the rising sun. The same archetypes, the same arcs, the same neatly tied bows at the end of every act. I was the director of development for an independent film company on the verge of a major breakthrough in the industry. I was the gatekeeper, the person everyone wanted to meet to gain entry into the business. But after reading hundreds of scripts, attending endless parties, and walking the red carpets of award shows, I realized it was all a facade. To the general public, Hollywood is a sun, radiant, untouchable, and eternal. But to those of us who work in its shadow, the sun is not a source of warmth or light. It is a blinding force too dangerous to look at directly. To stare at it is to risk exposure, to see the cracks in the veneer, the machinery behind the magic. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The sun becomes a mirror, reflecting back the emptiness of the stories we tell and the lives we lead. And yet, I knew I could not be one of them, those who avert their gaze, who trade authenticity for comfort. There's something quietly profound about the way we navigate life, a deeper pull, a guiding light that whispers yes or no, do or don't. It's not mine alone, it's ours. A moral compass, perhaps, buried within all of us, waiting to be fine-tuned. This isn't about superiority or ownership. It's about the possibility that we all carry this light, even if we don't always hear it. Many industries, perhaps the one that you work in, demands complicity, a willingness to look away from the truth. And yet, here I was, sitting in this sterile room, my eyes drifting to the window, to the ridgeline of the Palo Alto, rising in the distance, steady and unchanging. I focused on the way the light caught the edges of the hills, the way the redwoods stood tall and unyielding. Anything to avoid looking at Dr. Robinson, at the truth she was holding out to me like a mirror I didn't want to face. It was ironic, really, how I spent years gasping for air in my sleep, yet here I was, gasping for denial in the daylight. The numbers she had given me, 20 times an hour, 160 times a night, hung in the air, stark and unrelenting. I tried to wrap my mind around them, but they felt too vast, too abstract. How did I not see it? How did my own body betray me so silently, without a whisper, without a warning? No matter how much I wanted to turn away, I couldn't. Not really. Not from this. The industries that we all work in might demand complicity, but this was different. This was my body, my breath, my life. As much as I wanted to turn my gaze elsewhere, to focus on the steady ridgeline or the enduring redwoods, I knew I had to face it. The truth was there, inescapable, like the hills outside the window, steady, enduring, and indifferent to my attempts to ignore it. But I could no longer ignore the gnawing sense that I was complicit in perpetrating a myth, a spiritual void masked by the glitter of premieres and the applause of adoring crowds. Hollywood's sun is not life-giving, It is a false idol, worshipped by those who work the darkness of introspection, and yet it is in the darkness that truth resides, like the moon, which reflects the sun's light but carries its own mystery. I began to seek a different kind of illumination, one that didn't blind but revealed, that didn't demand conformity but celebrated authenticity. Less than a month earlier, I had attended a symposium for movie producers at the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills, California, the epicenter of all that mattered in Hollywood. The event was held in one of the hotel's grand ballrooms, where crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the room and the hum of ambition was palpable. The main presenter was a company called Silicon Graphics, and they were just showcasing the groundbreaking special effects they had created for Jurassic Park. As the lights dimmed and the screen came to life, I watched in awe as dinosaurs roared and thundered across the frame, their scales glistening, their movements terrifyingly real. It wasn't just a movie, it was a revelation. The technology behind it, the way it bent reality, the way it made the impossible tangible, felt like a glimpse into the future. And in that moment, I knew my path had shifted. The peninsula, with its manicured gardens and serene pools, was a world designed to cocoon its guests in comfort, to make them feel as though they had stepped into a paradise untouched by time. But as I wandered its grounds that evening, my mind was elsewhere. I could feel the pull of Silicon Valley, a place that was anything but an oasis. It was a frontier, raw and unsettled, where the rules were still being written and the stakes were impossibly high. It was a place where the future was being built, not with celluloid and script, but with code and algorithms. And I knew, with a certainty that burned in my chest, that it was where I belonged. Leaving the comfort of Hollywood was not an easy decision. The peninsula was a symbol of everything I had worked for, a testament to the life I had built. But as I stood there, surrounded by the trappings of success, I realized that true growth doesn't come from staying in the oasis. It comes from venturing into the unknown, from embracing the discomfort of the frontier. Silicon Valley was calling, and I was ready to answer. My journey from Los Angeles to Silicon Valley was not just a physical departure, but a spiritual one. I was leaving behind a world where the sun was too bright to stare at, too dangerous to question. I was searching for a new light, one that embraced truth rather than asking me to turn away. And then, like a quiet whisper from the universe guiding me through the dark, I found it, a deeper understanding of the intricate dance between life, wisdom, and the unseen forces that shape us. It wasn't just numbers or technology, it was the unfolding of possibility, a reminder that beneath all the complexities of existence, there is a rhythm, a pattern, a meaning waiting to be discovered. And then, like a guiding light breaking through the fog, I found it, the limitless expanse of possibility that called to me, promising answers in patterns, logic, and innovation. It was a pull I couldn't ignore, a whisper of something greater just beyond my reach, even as I stood amidst the opulence of the Peninsula Beverly Hills Hotel, where the air smelled of jasmine and the private villas were nestled like secrets among the lush tropical gardens. This was the oasis of the elite, the playground of Hollywood's power players, where deals were brokered over glasses of chilled Chardonnay, and the future of entertainment was shaped in hushed tones. But for me, it was no longer enough. A year earlier, I had met my future wife in the Bay Area, and she quickly became my anchor in a life that often felt unmoored. Every month, like clockwork, I would visit her, usually at the tail end of the week after wrapping up our Friday episode of In Living Color, the iconic, boundary-pushing sketch comedy series that defined an era with its sharp wit, bold humor, and unforgettable characters. Those trips were a whirlwind, frantic dash to catch the last red-eye from Los Angeles to San Francisco, the kind of mad rush that leaves you breathless and exhilarated all at once. As a wide-eyed apprentice writer, still soaking in the creative chaos of the show, These journeys felt like a surreal extension of the vibrant, unpredictable world I was just beginning to navigate. But the moment I stepped off the plane into her world, everything slowed. Her presence was a balm, a quiet counterbalance to the chaos that defined my weeks. Kathy had a way of grounding me, of reminding me that not everything had to be a fight, a hustle, or a performance. She had always told me, in that steady, unwavering way of hers, that I would have a place to stay if I ever decided to move north. It wasn't just an offer, it was an invitation to something deeper, something more stable. And though I didn't realize it at the time, those words planted a seed in me, one that would eventually take root. A month after my experience at the Peninsula Hotel, the seed began to sprout. The primal part of my brain, the part wired for survival, for instinct, for recognizing when something isn't working, kicked in. It wasn't a dramatic moment, not at first. It was more like a quiet but insistent voice, growing louder until I could no longer ignore it. It urged me to act, to make a change, to leave behind the life I had built in Los Angeles, and take a leap into the unknown. And though the decision was fraught with uncertainty, I knew one thing for certain: she would be there, waiting, ready to help me find my footing in a world that felt both foreign and full of promise. Whether it was for good or for bad, I didn't have time to question it. I just knew I had to move, and quickly. Before I could second-guess myself, I was throwing cherished belongings into my car, haphazardly stuffing my life into the back seat and trunk. The clock ticked past midnight as I pulled out of the driveway, the hum of the engine the only sound in the stillness. I was running on adrenaline, on instinct, on the kind of reckless determination that makes you believe you can outpace fate itself. But fate, as I would soon learn, has a way of catching up. The road stretched endlessly ahead, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the darkness. It was a blank canvas, a metaphor for the fresh start I was chasing. But as the miles rolled on, my body began to betray me. My eyelids grew heavy, the world outside the windshield blurring into a haze of shadows and faint, distant lights. I told myself I could push through, that I didn't need sleep, that I was stronger than my own exhaustion. But the human body has its limits, and mine was closing fast. I didn't even realize I'd drifted off until a split-second instinct jolted me awake. My heart slammed against my ribs as my hands wrenched the steering wheel, the tires screeching against the pavement. The car swerved violently, narrowly missing the guardrail, and then I saw them, the headlights. Two blinding orbs of light barreling toward me, growing larger and brighter with every passing second. Time seemed to slow, the world narrowing to those lights. They were hypnotic, almost beautiful in their intensity. Like the light people describe seeing in near-death experiences, the kind that pulls you in, promising space, promising an end to the struggle. For a moment, I was frozen, caught between the instinct to fight and the eerie allure of surrender. My pulse thundered in my ears, my breath coming in shallow gasps. The headlights were so close now, their glow filling the car, washing over me in a wave of searing brightness. I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. But then, a divine presence within me stirred, guiding my hands with purpose beyond my own. My hands tightened on the wheel, my foot slammed the brake, and I yanked the car back into my lane with a force that sent my belongings tumbling into the back seat. The other vehicle surged past, a chaotic streak of metal and sound, its horn slicing through the silence of the night. I sat frozen, my hands locked on the steering wheel, fingers pale and bloodless from the force of my grip. Adrenaline pulsed through me, sharp and electric, leaving my nerves raw and my breath shallow. The world outside felt distant, muffled, as if the near miss had carved a hollow space around me, separating me from everything but the pounding of my own heart. The road ahead of me was empty again, the darkness swallowing the taillights of the other car as if it had never been there. But I knew I had just brushed against something far greater than myself, something that could have ended everything in an instant. That night, I learned the hard way that impulse can be both a lifeline and a liability. It had driven me to act, to chase a new beginning. but it had also nearly cost me everything. As I pulled over to catch my breath, the weight of what had just happened settled over like a heavy blanket. I was alive, yes, but I was also acutely aware of how fragile that aliveness was. The road ahead was still long, and the journey was far from over. But one thing was certain: I would never look at headlights the same way again. When I finally crossed into Northern California, the echoes of that near-death encounter lingered, not as an end, but as a pause, a to-be-continued, etched into the fabric of my journey, a shadow hinting at stories yet to unfold. The car, my makeshift sanctuary for the long, sleepless drive, was a chaotic mess, a testament to the urgency of my flight. The inside was thick with the stale scent of undrunk, lukewarm coffee, mingling with the acrid tang of sweat and the faint, greasy aroma of half-eaten fast food wrappers strewn across the passenger seat. It was a smell that spoke of exhaustion, of unkempt desperation, of a journey fueled by equal parts fear and determination, as a pungent testament to days spent pushing forward, unwashed and unrested. As the first light of dawn began to break, the sky transformed into a canvas of red, gold, and blue, a breathtaking Californian sunrise that felt almost mocking in its beauty. Here I was, a man on the edge, arriving in Silicon Valley not as a conquering hero, but as someone who had narrowly escaped becoming a cautionary tale. The glow of the rising sun seemed to illuminate not just the landscape, but the weight of what I had left behind, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Silicon Valley unfolded ahead, its sprawling campuses and sleek office buildings humming with the promise of innovation and reinvention, a landscape pulsing with both ambition and unease. But as I stepped out of the car, my legs stiff and my mind still racing, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just brought a piece of the darkness with me. The brush with fate on the road wasn't just a moment of danger, it was a profound reminder of life's fragility and purpose. And as I stood there, breathing in the crisp morning air, I knew that this place, this land of dreamers and disruptors, would either be my redemption or my ruin. When I told my future wife Kathy about the brush with fate, her face fell still. In that moment, I saw the depth of her love, raw and unguarded. She was my compass in the chaos, the steady hand that guided me through the storms. To me, she was the full moon illuminating my darkest nights, the sunlight that warmed my coldest days. Though fiercely independent, unshakable in my convictions, and immune to the unsolicited advice, I always trusted her implicity. Her words carried a quiet authority, a wisdom that resonated deep within me. I knew, without question, that when she suggested something, it was something I needed to hear. Without hesitation, she made me promise to see a doctor, her voice firm but laced with a tenderness that someone who truly cares can convey. It wasn't just a demand, it was a plea, a reflection of how much she valued the life we were building together. And in that instant, I felt the weight of her love, not as a burden, but as a gift, a reminder that I was never alone, even in my most reckless moments. That's how I ended up in Dr. Robinson's office, sitting across from her as she delivered the news I hadn't wanted to hear. Her words hung in the air, heavy and unrelenting, as I struggled to reconcile the image of myself, a driven, ambitious entrepreneur, with the reality of a body betraying me in ways I couldn't control. The redwoods outside stood tall, their ancient resilience a strong contrast to my own fragility. Inside, the room felt smaller, the walls closing in as I faced a truth I could no longer outrun. It seemed like part of the territory, part of what made me who I was. The sleepless nights, the relentless grind, they were badges of honor, proof that I was pushing myself to the limit. But the serious look in Dr. Robinson's eyes told me this was no longer something to joke about. She didn't respond to my attempt at levity. Instead, her gaze shifted briefly, almost imperceptibly, to my body. It wasn't just the fatigue in my eyes she saw, it was the weight I had been carrying for years, physically and otherwise. A weight I had let define me, even as it slowly erased the person I once was. I used to be a hometown legend, inducted into my high school Hall of Fame for 2 sports, setting records that still stood unbroken for 30 years after graduation. I was the guy who could outrun anyone, outlast anyone, the guy who thrived under pressure. But now, it was hard to look in the mirror during the day, and even harder at night without clothing. Where did that guy go? How did he slip away? Why did he leave without warning? The questions gnawed at me, unanswered and unrelenting. I didn't recognize the man staring back at me, not just in the reflection, but in the choices I'd made, the life I'd built, the person I'd become. It was as if I'd lost myself somewhere along the way, trading the fire of who I was for the ashes of who I thought I should be. And now, sitting in that room, I felt the weight of that loss more than ever. It was a sentiment to anyone who's ever lost their identity could understand. The aching of looking in the mirror and wondering how you got there, and if there's any way back to who you used to be. Dr. Robinson returned her focus to me, her expression still unwavering. "You need to make changes, Derrick," she said, her words cutting through the room with the force of a revelation. "Between the sleep apnea and your weight, if you don't change, you'll be dead in 2 years. The world seemed to pause. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, I could hear nothing but the pounding of my heart. 2 years. How could that be? How had I gotten to this point? I'd always been a man of action, a man who believed that things could be fixed with enough effort, enough grit. But this was beyond anything I could solve with sheer will. The truth was undeniable. The consequences of my choices were now laid out before me, stark and final. I sat there, stunned, as Dr. Robinson's words continued to echo in my mind. It wasn't just the sleep apnea, it was everything. The weight, the habits, the choices I had made and neglected to make. And now, in this time, in this quiet, dimly lit room, the clock was ticking. I had a journey to make, and so, in that moment, the path before me was clear. The journey toward change wasn't just about improving my sleep. It was about transforming my life, reclaiming my health and acknowledging the responsibility I had to myself. This moment in my life served as the turning point. It was a wake-up call, not just about sleep, but about the choices I was making and the consequences those choices would have if I didn't act. It would become the foundation of my journey, one that ultimately led to the realization that health, wellness, and sleep are far more intertwined than I had even understood before. If there's one thing I learned that day, it's that we don't always get a second chance to change the course of our lives. Sometimes, the wake-up call is the only warning we'll get before it's too late. This book is my attempt to share the journey I've walked, the lessons I've gathered, and the techniques that have fueled my movement forward. A movement rooted in resilience, clarity, and purpose. Life, much like mastering a new skill, demands patience, perseverance, and the willingness to learn from failure. It's a journey of growth, where each challenge shapes who we become, demands strategy, adaptability, and the courage to act decisively when the moment calls for it. Opportunities are fleeting, and hesitation can cost us everything. The wisdom of the ages reminds us that success often goes to those who prepare diligently, act swiftly, and remain steadfast in the face of uncertainty. It is not enough to simply recognize the signs. We must also have the discipline to respond with intention and the humility to learn from every setback. I hope these pages offer a helpful path forward for anyone standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take. Remember, the greatest challenges are often faced within ourselves. By mastering our fears, embracing change, and aligning our actions with our deepest values, we can navigate even the most difficult circumstances. Let this be your reminder. The time to act is now. For the future belongs to those who dare to move forward with purpose and resolve. The first chapter of Infinite Sky is an invitation to look deeply at life, to recognize its fleeting nature, and to embrace the possibility of real, meaningful change. It's about self-awareness, urgency, and the profound transformation that happens when we stop avoiding the truths that are calling for our attention. I'm not here to provide all the answers, but to share what I've learned from walking this path, hoping it might offer some insight as I continue my own journey. This book is my purpose, for myself first and foremost, and if it resonates with even one other person, I'll consider it an honor. You don't need to have it all figured out, just the courage to begin. And if my words meet you where you are, we'll take the next step, side by side. The following action plan is not a rigid set of instructions, but a compassionate guide, one that meets you where you are and gently encourages you forward. Each step is offered with care and humility, hoping to help you uncover what may be holding you back, understanding the layers of your challenges, and taking steps toward the life you're seeking. Step 1. Pause and reflect on your wake-up call. Action. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes each day for quiet reflection. Sit in a comfortable, distraction-free space. Ask yourself, what wake-up calls have I ignored in my life? What moments have forced me to confront uncomfortable truths? Write down your thoughts in a journal without judgment. Why it matters. Reflection helps you identify the moments in your life when you've avoided facing reality. In the first chapter, I shared a deeply personal moment, one where I faced a near-death experience and a life-changing diagnosis. Looking back, I realized that these moments, though terrifying, often carry the wisdom we need to understand what's out of alignment in our lives. They reveal what we need to change, what we need to heal, and what truly matters. Step 2. Identify your avoidance patterns. Action. Make a list of the ways you've avoided confronting difficult truths. These could include overworking, numbing with distractions, TV, social media, or ignoring health warnings. For each item, ask, what was I trying to avoid? What was the cost of not addressing it sooner? Why it matters. Awareness of avoidance patterns is the first step toward breaking the cycle of denial. My journey began when I finally stopped ignoring the quiet whispers of my body and faced the truth about my health. It wasn't easy to accept, but in that moment of surrender, I found the clarity I had been avoiding. A path forward began to unfold. Step 3. Define your core needs. Identify the deeper needs behind your avoidance or destructive habits. Common needs include rest, connection, purpose, self-worth, or emotional healing. For example, if you've been overworking, your core might need balance or a sense of accomplishment. Why it matters. Understanding your core needs help you focus on solutions that address the root cause of your struggles, rather than masking the symptoms. My need for health and vitality only became truly clear after I was forced to face my own mortality. It was in that raw, vulnerable moment that I realized how much I had taken my life for granted, and how deeply I longed to nurture and protect the life I still had. Step 4. Create a sustainable routine for change. Action. Build a daily routine that supports your core needs. Start small. Add 1 or 2 habits that align with your goals, a morning walk, a nightly wind-down ritual, or regular check-ins with a loved one. Focus on consistency, not perfection. Why it matters. Sustainable habits create a foundation for lasting change. My journey required me to rebuild my life, one step at a time, with intentional, health-focused routines. It wasn't just about physical change, but about creating a life that honored my body, mind, and spirit in ways I had truly never understood before. Step 5. Embrace discomfort as a sign of growth. Practice sitting with discomfort instead of immediately seeking a distraction. When you feel the urge to avoid or numb yourself, pause and take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What can I learn from this discomfort? Why it matters. Discomfort is often a sign of growth. By facing it head-on, you build resilience and gain clarity about what truly matters. The discomfort I felt in confronting my health crisis became the catalyst for my transformation. It was in facing that pain and uncertainty that I was pushed to grow, to change, and to finally embrace the deeper healing I had been avoiding. Step 6. Seek support and accountability. Action. Reach out for the help when needed. Share your journey with a trusted friend, mentor, or therapist. Join a community or group that aligns with your goals. A health-focused group, a meditation circle, or support group for change. Why it matters. Transformation is not a solo journey. Support from others can provide accountability, encouragement, and new perspectives. My future wife played a crucial role in guiding me towards seeking help. Her quiet strength and unwavering support were the gentle push I needed, showing me that it was okay to ask for help and that I didn't have to carry this burden alone. Step 7. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Acknowledge and celebrate small wins along the way. Keep a progress journal to track your growth and reflect on how far you've come. Celebrate milestones, no matter how small. Sticking to your routine for a week, resisting a destructive habit, or having a moment of clarity. Why it matters. Celebrating progress reinforces positive behavior and keeps you motivated on your journey. The small steps I took toward health and self-awareness gradually led to profound change. Each simple step, each moment of reflection, built upon the last, eventually transforming me in ways I never imagined possible. Step 8. Revisit and adjust your plan. Action. Regularly review your progress and adjust your plan as needed. Set aside time each month to reflect on what's working and what isn't. Be open to trying new approaches or letting go of habits that no longer serve you. Why it matters. Transformation is an ongoing process. Regular check-ins ensure you stay aligned with your goals and continue to grow. Final thought. My journey wasn't linear. It was filled with twists and turns and setbacks that would have stopped most people in their tracks. But my willingness to adapt, no matter how difficult, kept me moving forward. What lies ahead are even more unbelievable stories. Ones that seem impossible to believe, stories that make me wonder how I lived long enough to write this book. But here I am, ready to share the suspenseful, wild ride that has brought me to this point.